second week in August. Well, you know what? I cannot do the month of August and toads at all. I stay away from it because what the Jews did was when they grouped terms with months, what they did was one of the terms in August means father.
Oh, like the 9th of Av.
And so anytime you try to go into August, you're going to get millions of results because August is terrible because they put their father's name in there. And, of course, in the Word of God, his name is going to come up that many times.
It's the same thing with Bush. Bush comes up a lot.
So they've literally just you can't even go near the month of August in the Bible codes. You can do July and September, which are always hot months. So August very well since it's sandwiched in between the two.
I had one last question for you, and it had come up in a group discussion this morning. That's Matthew 27:50 about the death of Jesus, and at the moment of his death, that the graves opened up, and that many of the saints were resurrected at that time.
Yeah.
And came out 3 days later. However, I have never seen this in any movie, and I have never heard it preached on. And I wonder, is there a reason why mainstream churches avoid this?
There's so many things that they avoid.
Well,
right, that being one of them, because they can't explain it. I mean, to them, then they would have to try to explain how it's happening again with a pre-trib facade.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't know.
That's true, Sherry, because they can't explain it or understand it. They just would try to eliminate it totally. John, I think that verse means when Jesus was resurrected, he took this Old Testament souls with him that followed God with him.
Well, they actually roamed the earth for 40 days.
Right, and they went up with him, I believe.
Yeah, and you know what? You don't hear about it, and you certainly don't see it on the TV, or, that would have been a sight to behold.
Well, that's one of the right. That's one of the most miraculous things in the New Testament, and it's downplayed.
And so much of it, John, is the fact that the Romans and the Catholics and the Constantine and all these Mithraic initiates that put the Bible together left so much out of it, did a lot of mistranslating, so, things are omitted, things are added in. I mean,
they probably figured that's so weird, just leave it in. No one will believe it anyhow.
Yeah, and the pastors just tend to skip over and ignore anything they don't want to explain.
Well, I'm going to get off so other people can call in, and I'm delighted that you've gone, both of you, to the 2 hours, and I've asked some other people to call in tonight. And
all right, thanks a lot, John. Good to hear from you.
Thank you both, and have a blessed New Year.
You too.
God bless you.
We should put him on contract to just be the first caller every show.
John, I was hoping he'd call up again because I remember he said in the ancient Greeks knew that the year 2005 meant judgment, and how they knew that, it's a mystery.
That came to my mind this week too, but I couldn't remember what he said. I just remember that there was something really good about the title for 2005, and I couldn't remember it. So I'm glad he did.
Oh my!
Tell us again what that was.
Anyway, we heard the circus music a little while past. I don't know if Steve can play it again.
You can play it again, Steve? Is he listening?
Probably not. Somebody out there, are you listening? Call up and tell us you're listening to the show, please. Well, anyway, every week I try to spend time in different Christian chat rooms and see what's the buzz and what people are talking about or screaming about, or that's even before I type anything. And because I usually say once saved, always saved, a license to sin, and right away they attack you and then you're of the devil and all these things. But this week the talk has been this terrible tsunami disaster. And I'd like to make a few comments on it and see what you have to say, Sherry, and then maybe some people like to call in and talk about this.
Alrighty.
But basically when this happened, the first thing, of course, we all try to do is try to make some sense of it. Like, why would God allow such a terrible disaster to happen where at least 150,000 people were killed and maybe double that will die from diseases? And so many children were killed and will be orphaned. And you hear many different things in chat rooms, and I'd just like to share real quickly two views that basically happen. You have the one group of more of a hardcore fundamentalist, I would call them, or Baptists, and they seem to say that God caused this to happen. It's like they picture God in his throne in heaven, and he has a console, and it says doomsday, and has like different buttons, like hurricane, tornado, tsunami, earthquake, and God just pushes a button, tsunami, and then a great globe comes up in the air, and then God would say, okay, I'll hit Indonesia, and he pushes a button, go, and boom, an earthquake happens. And that's what a lot of people really believe, that God caused this to happen. And I don't believe God caused it to happen. I believe God allowed this to happen, and I'd like to see what you think about that, Sherry.
Well, he's going to use mankind to further his judgments on the earth. We know his judgments are coming. And, certainly living on the other side of the world, we don't know what's going on over there. But he hears the blood of the righteous. So many people, and like you said, you brought up, they say, why did God allow this to happen? People always blame God after something happens, but they won't listen to him before it happens when he was trying to get their attention to tell them to get out of there.
Exactly.
And then after it happens, oh, he let this happen, why do you do this? You can't win.
Well, you hear even worse. I heard people actually saying in chat, because in a chat room you're very anonymous and you can really say whatever you want. People were blaming God, and people were saying God did this, God killed children, God is evil. And this is Satan behind these statements, but it really does make us wonder, why would God allow such a horrible thing to happen?
Well, we have his book in our hands, and you know what? There's going to be a whole period of it called the Great Wrath of the Lord that's coming. So if you don't like this, you're certainly not going to like what's coming.
That's very true. And I found some facts out about Thailand and Sri Lanka and a lot of these places where all these children were killed. And there's a huge black market there for child prostitution, and they force young girls to become exotic dancers and be prostitutes. And there's a large black market where Western tourists come and they have sex with children, and they give them thousands of dollars to do so. And when all this is happening to children, there's been a lot of shows on this on Dateline, and people know all about it. Everybody turns a blind eye. But it's only when the children are killed in a disaster that people scream, God, look at God. God allowed this. God kills the children. But nobody cared about the children before this tsunami hit.
Yeah, they do nothing about all these children's slave rackets going on. And, what did they do? They allowed Timothy McVeigh to be electrocuted or, killed by injection and poisoning for the OKC bombing, when clearly his little truck of fertilizer didn't blow that building up. There's all kinds of government ties all over that explosion, the same as the World Trade Towers. And nobody, as soon as it gets to the government, everybody just sits down and shuts up.
And then they blame God for everything.
Yeah, let's bring the government to accountability. Half of New York City knows the government was involved with the destruction of WTC Tower buildings, but nobody has the guts to come forward. They've got a lawsuit out there now against the government, half of the families that were affected by it. And, of course, you're not going to hear this from the media, but you can read about it on the Internet. It's there all day long. But you know what? There's so many atrocities going on, and people don't want to do something about it. They just want to blame God.
Blaming God, and that's what people are really doing for this. And you know what's really interesting, Sherry? I really sat and wondered, why would God let so many people die? Why would God allow such a horrible tsunami to hit? And then I saw the news tonight, and it all made sense. Did you know that President Bush and a group of scientists for the last 5 years have been warning the United Nations to set up a tsunami warning center in the oceans and seas around Indonesia because they knew this would happen, and Kofi Annan, the head of the UN, refused to listen. He refused to set up these tsunami warning centers, meaning it's like a law.
Well, they don't need them. They don't need them. It's moot right now. You know why? Because they knew that they were coming.